Dr. Alex Mercer had always thought of himself as careful. In fact, his colleagues often teased him for overthinking every move while exploring alien ruins. Yet here he was, crouched inside the shadow of a temple that no human had ever set foot in, and one wrong step away from causing a galactic incident. The walls around him shimmered faintly, carved with patterns that seemed to move if he stared too long. They were not just decorations. They were warnings or perhaps instructions, though he couldn't tell which. Alex adjusted his scanner, the device humming softly in his hands. The readings were unusual, showing fields of energy he had never encountered before. He traced the source to a raised platform at the center of the temple. It looked almost like an altar, but it pulsed with life in a way that made his skin prickle. He glanced back at his team, who were cautiously inspecting the walls, their faces lit by portable lamps. "Alex, are you sure it's safe to touch that?" asked Dr. Lyra Vance, the mission's lead xenobiologist. She had a sharp mind and a sharper instinct for danger, and her eyes narrowed as she looked at the glowing platform. "I'm almost positive," Alex replied, though his voice carried a hint of doubt. "The energy reading is stable. It looks like it reacts to touch, but it's not aggressive." He set his hand lightly on the surface. The moment he did, a wave of warmth shot through his body, and a faint humming filled the room, like a song that existed only inside his mind. Before he could pull back, the platform shimmered, and a protective barrier of light erupted around the central figure of the temple, a massive, sinuous tail of iridescent scales that seemed to belong to something alive. Alex froze, staring in awe. It was the tail of a creature the readings had identified as the legendary alien queen, a being that was more myth than reality to most of the galaxy's explorers. The tail twitched. The barrier Alex had triggered acted as a shield, not against him, but around the tail itself. And then, as if sensing the human hand that had protected it, the creature stirred. The air grew heavy, charged with a strange power that seemed to seep into Alex's bones. A presence, immense and intelligent, filled the room, focusing entirely on him. Alex's heart raced. He had not expected the Queen to notice him so quickly. The legends spoke of her as a being of immense authority, feared and revered across star systems. To accidentally shield her tail, her most sacred part, was unthinkable. Yet as he stared at the shimmering light, he realized something even stranger. She was not angry. She was curious. Alex felt her attention like a weight pressing on him, yet also strangely comforting, as though he were under the gaze of someone who could see both his fears and his potential. The Queen's tail flicked and the shield responded to each movement, adjusting, reacting. It was clear she could have removed him from the temple instantly, but she did not. Instead, she watched. The rest of his team noticed it too. Lyra's eyes widened and the others stepped back nervously. "Alex, what did you do?" she whispered, her voice trembling with a mix of awe and fear. I think I just saved her tail," Alex replied, though the words sounded ridiculous even to him. He wasn't sure if he was proud or terrified. The Queen's gaze seemed to pierce through him. It was not threatening, but it was unwavering. She moved with elegance, her immense body coiling around the room without ever touching the walls. The tail, still shielded by the barrier, flicked toward him, and the light around it shimmered like water. Alex realized that freeing himself was not going to be simple. Every step he took was observed. Every movement seemed to matter. Even when he turned to speak to his team, he felt her presence like a silent weight pressing him forward, holding him in place. He tried to reason with himself. This was a being far beyond humanity's understanding. She might not harm him, but she certainly could. And yet, there was a strange intelligence, a fascination in her gaze that made Alex realize that this encounter could change everything humanity knew about the galaxy. Days passed in what felt like hours. Alex and the Queen remained in the temple, with him trying to study her behavior while she studied him. Food and water were no issue. His team ensured he had what he needed. But sleep was difficult under her unblinking observation. Every time he tried to rest, he felt her presence, like a quiet insistence that he remain alert, aware, worthy. Alex began talking to her, half in hope and half in desperation. I didn't know," he said one morning, his voice echoing in the silent temple. "I was just trying to understand." He realized that communication might not require words. Her attention was a language in itself, a constant dialogue of observation, reaction, and trust. He experimented cautiously, making small gestures of respect, bowing slightly, carefully moving his hands, adjusting the shielded tail's energy with his tools. Each time, she responded. Sometimes with flicks, sometimes with subtle vibrations in the barrier. Alex began to see patterns, learning the rhythm of her attention, the rules of this silent conversation. Despite his fascination, the situation was perilous. Word of the Queen's observation could not be kept secret for long. The alien species that revered her would notice any unusual behavior, and any mistake could be disastrous. He knew that he could not rely on luck. Human ingenuity, he realized, was his only tool. Late one evening, while adjusting a scanning device near the barrier, Alex had an idea. If he could map the energy signature of the shield and mimic her movements, perhaps he could create a controlled interaction that would prove his understanding and earn her trust. It was risky, but the alternative, remaining under her gaze indefinitely without hope of freedom, was worse. He began careful trials, observing the tail, recording data, noting reactions. The Queen's presence was intimidating, yet she never interfered directly. Instead, she guided, almost teaching him through subtle movements. It was exhausting work, and several times Alex nearly collapsed, overwhelmed by the intensity of her focus. Through it all, he began to feel a strange bond forming. It was not friendship, at least not in human terms, but a connection that transcended species. She was curious, intelligent, and immensely powerful, yet she allowed him autonomy within certain boundaries. Alex realized that he had never faced anything like this in all his years of exploration. Humanity's history, its ingenuity and persistence, was about to be measured against a creature of pure alien majesty. By the third day, Alex had made progress. He could predict some of her movements, anticipate her reactions, and adjust the shield accordingly. It was delicate work, a dance of observation and respect. And with each success, the Queen's attention seemed to relax ever so slightly. He could see her acknowledging his efforts, and that small recognition gave him hope. However, the outside world was not idle. The alien species that revered the Queen were vigilant. Alex could hear the distant hum of their ships, scanning, observing, evaluating. One wrong move could trigger suspicion, even hostility. He realized that his ingenuity would not only need to impress the Queen, but also the broader alien society. Humanity's reputation was, quite literally, in his hands. Late one night, as Alex sat quietly near the shielded tail, he allowed himself a moment of reflection. He thought of Earth, of his colleagues, of all the mistakes and successes that had led him here. And he realized something profound. Humans were often underestimated. He was a single person, small and fragile compared to the galaxy's wonders, yet here he was, interacting with a being that could end his life with a flick of her tail and surviving. Not through brute force, but through ingenuity, observation, and respect. The Queen's attention remained unwavering, yet it no longer felt like a trap. It was a challenge, a test, and a possibility all at once. Alex understood that his actions now could determine humanity's place in this corner of the galaxy. He also understood that mistakes could be forgiven, if approached with honesty, courage, and intelligence. As the first light of the alien sun touched the temple's walls, Alex stood and adjusted his scanner. He looked at the shielded tail shimmering in the early light and whispered, "I don't know how long this will last, but I will learn. I will understand, and I will earn your trust." He did not know what challenges awaited him, but he knew one thing clearly. Humanity had made a first impression on a being far greater than anything in their galaxy. And in that moment, he resolved to make it count. No matter how long she watched, no matter how impossible the situation seemed, Alex Mercer would prove that humans were not just fragile beings. They were resilient, clever, and capable of rising to challenges that even legends could not anticipate. And with that thought, he prepared for the next day, unaware that the Queen's fascination would soon extend far beyond the temple, bringing him into a galaxy of wonder, danger, and unexpected opportunities. Days turned into a blur of observation, study, and cautious interaction. Doctor. Alex Mercer had grown accustomed to the constant presence of the alien Queen, though accustomed might be too generous a word. It was more like a tense coexistence. The moment he tried to step away or turn his attention elsewhere, he could feel her gaze, sharp and unyielding, yet not hostile. The Queen was curious, and that curiosity weighed heavily on Alex's every action. He moved carefully through the temple, taking measurements, recording energy readings, and testing the limits of the protective shield he had accidentally triggered. The tail remained at the center of the room, shimmering with colors he could not name. It was beautiful, alive, and yet somehow aware of his thoughts. Alex had long since realized that this being could perceive him in ways no human could truly understand. The shield was not just a barrier, it was a conversation, a living instrument of trust and caution. Alex's attempts to communicate with the Queen directly had been cautious. He tried gestures, careful movements, and even simple phrases. The responses were subtle. A flick of the tail here, a pulse of light there. But gradually, patterns emerged. He learned that certain gestures encouraged her to move away slightly while others invited her closer. Slowly, he began to understand the rhythm of her attention, yet it was not simple. Every day presented new challenges. The Queen's species valued subtlety, patience, and precision, and she expected the same from him. One wrong gesture, one careless movement, could provoke a reaction that he could not predict. He knew he had to tread lightly, but also to find ways to assert himself without seeming disrespectful. It was a delicate balance, one that required both courage and ingenuity. Alex's team watched from a distance, anxious and fascinated. Dr. Lyra Vance, ever cautious, had begun documenting everything, analyzing his interactions for patterns. She was impressed by his progress, though she did not hide her worry. "Alex, remember, this isn't just about you," she warned one morning. "You're in the middle of a society we barely understand. Your actions affect all of humanity's first impressions here." This was no different, only the stakes were higher, and the audience was far more powerful than anything they had faced on Earth. He spent hours observing the Queen's behavior. He noticed subtle changes in the way her tail moved when she was alone versus when he approached. He realized that she was testing him, assessing his reactions, and perhaps even measuring his understanding of her world. He began to mimic her patterns, moving in ways that mirrored her gestures, and was rewarded with small pulses of light from the shield. These were not dramatic gestures, but they were significant. They were acknowledgement. The days grew tense when scouts from her species began to appear outside the temple. Their ships hovered silently, scanning, observing, and occasionally communicating with each other in ways Alex could only partially interpret. He knew that his every move was being watched. If he failed, the consequences could be severe. Yet he also knew that his successes, small though they were, could demonstrate the unique strengths of humanity. Cleverness, adaptability, and courage were traits that had always allowed humans to survive and thrive. One afternoon, while carefully adjusting a sensor near the shield, Alex noticed a subtle change in the Queen's behavior. Her tail twitched, the light pulsed in a new rhythm, and for the first time she seemed to guide him rather than merely observe. She moved to the edge of the barrier and then away, creating space that he could navigate. Alex realized that she was offering him limited freedom, a test of trust. He approached slowly, careful to match the timing of her movements. It was a delicate dance, one that required complete focus. Every step, every gesture had to be in harmony with her attention. He held his breath, adjusted the sensor, and observed her response. A gentle flick of the tail, a soft pulse of light. She had approved. The small victory gave Alex hope, but he knew the challenges were far from over. The Queen's attention was constant, yet she was not predictable. He had to remain vigilant, learning, adapting, and responding at every moment. It was exhausting, but he felt a growing confidence in his abilities. Humans were small, yes, but they were resilient and resourceful. The following day, Alex attempted something bolder. He activated a device designed to map the energy flows of the shield in 3 dimensions. It hummed softly, scanning, and the shield pulsed in response. He watched closely as the Queen's tail moved in reaction. It was subtle, almost imperceptible to anyone but him, but he recognized it immediately. She was curious, perhaps even approving. Encouraged, Alex began to experiment with controlled gestures, moving in ways that demonstrated understanding and respect. Each successful attempt earned him small acknowledgments, a flick here, a pulse there. The process was slow, but it was progress. He realized that this was how humans could communicate across species boundaries, through observation, adaptation, and careful action. However, not everything went smoothly. One evening, while adjusting a sensor, he misjudged his timing. The shield flared, and the Queen's tail reacted sharply, creating a wave of energy that knocked him off his feet. He felt the weight of her attention in that moment, sharp and commanding, yet she did not attack. Instead, she paused, allowing him to rise. It was a warning, and Alex understood immediately. Respect, caution, and patience were essential. He spent the next hours reflecting on the incident, noting every detail. He could not afford another mistake. The Queen's attention was a privilege, but also a responsibility. He had to prove himself not through force, but through understanding and intelligence. And slowly, he began to see that this was exactly what humans excelled at. Outside the temple, the alien society remained vigilant. Scouts observed every movement, and occasional messages arrived in ways Alex could barely interpret. He realized that word of his actions could spread quickly, shaping perceptions of humanity before he even left the temple. The responsibility weighed on him, but it also strengthened his resolve. Humans had always faced the unknown, and this was no different. One night, Alex sat quietly near the shielded tail, reflecting on everything that had happened. The Queen's attention was constant, but it was not oppressive. It was demanding, yes, but it also encouraged him to rise to the challenge. He realized that she was not just testing him for her own curiosity, she was assessing humanity itself. Through him, she was evaluating whether humans were worthy of respect, whether they could rise to challenges that no other species might endure. He thought of Earth, of his colleagues, and of the countless generations who had faced impossible odds. And he realized that humans were not defined by their size or strength, but by their ingenuity, adaptability, and courage. He had been cautious at first, unsure of how to act, but now he understood. This was the moment humans had always prepared for, even without knowing it. The following morning, Alex tried something entirely new. He moved deliberately in sync with the Queen's tail, activating devices in precise sequences designed to test the shield's responsiveness. The pulses of light responded in patterns that he could interpret. It was a language of action and reaction, a conversation without words, and the Queen seemed pleased. Her tail moved with grace and the shield glowed softly in acknowledgement. Alex felt a surge of determination. He was learning, adapting, and thriving under conditions that would have overwhelmed anyone else. Humanity's strengths, curiosity, courage, cleverness were proving their value in ways he had never imagined. And he realized something profound. This was just the beginning. Outside the temple, the alien society continued to watch. Scouts communicated through signals Alex could barely decode, and occasional messages suggested that not all of them were pleased with his presence. Yet even among those who were skeptical, the Queen's attention carried weight. Alex understood that he was no longer just an observer. He was a participant in a larger story, one that involved not only his survival but the reputation of humanity itself. As he worked, Alex felt a growing bond with the Queen. It was not friendship exactly, but a connection that transcended species. She was a being of immense power and intelligence, yet she allowed him agency, challenged him, and rewarded him for ingenuity and respect. It was a delicate balance, and Alex cherished it, knowing that one misstep could undo everything. By the end of the second week, he had mapped significant portions of the shield's energy flows and begun to predict the Queen's responses with remarkable accuracy. Each success strengthened his confidence, and even the minor mistakes became lessons rather than disasters. He understood that humans survived not by avoiding mistakes, but by learning from them and adapting quickly. Late one evening, as the alien sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows through the temple, Alex sat beside the shielded tail and reflected. He thought about the journey that had brought him here, the mistakes, the discoveries, and the constant tension of living under the gaze of a being far greater than himself. And he realized that this experience, challenging as it was, had revealed something fundamental about humanity. They were small, fragile, and yet extraordinary in their resilience and ingenuity. The Queen flicked her tail gently, a soft pulse of light acknowledging his thoughts. Alex smiled faintly. He could not speak her language, but he did not need to. She understood in her own way that he was learning, adapting, and rising to the challenge. And in that moment, Alex knew that the days ahead would be even more demanding, yet full of potential. Humanity's ingenuity had earned a first measure of respect from one of the galaxy's most powerful beings, and that was only the beginning. He prepared for the coming challenges, ready to navigate the delicate balance of trust, respect, and understanding that would define his life under the Queen's attention. The galaxy beyond the temple waited, full of danger and discovery, and Alex Mercer was determined to meet it head-on. The following days tested Alex Mercer in ways he had never imagined. Living under the constant observation of the alien Queen was exhausting, both mentally and physically. Every movement, every gesture, every action was scrutinized, yet he could not retreat. To survive, and to help humanity's reputation in this alien world, he had to rise to the challenge. Alex had begun to understand more of the Queen's subtle communication. The flick of her tail, the pulse of the shield, even the way her massive body shifted in the temple, all conveyed meaning. Each day, he deciphered a little more. He realized that she was not only curious about him, but also testing his intelligence, his patience, and his adaptability. Mistakes were allowed, but hesitation or disrespect was not. One morning, Alex noticed unusual activity outside the temple. Small, sleek alien ships hovered silently above the treetops, scanning the terrain. Their presence was cautious but deliberate, and Alex immediately sensed tension. He rushed to alert his team, knowing that their presence could escalate matters if they were discovered. "Scouts," he said quietly, pointing to the ships. "They're watching us, and I don't think they're happy." Alex realized she was aware of the ships outside and in her own way was acknowledging the threat. He felt a strange reassurance in that moment. The Queen, powerful and inscrutable, was watching over him, yet he could not rely solely on her protection. He had to act, and he had to act intelligently. Alex decided to make contact with the scouts, not directly, but through a controlled signal using the alien devices in the temple. He studied the energy patterns, tracing the frequencies he believed would communicate non-hostility. It was delicate work. Any error could be interpreted as aggression. Hours passed as he calibrated the devices, his focus absolute. Finally, he sent the signal. The alien ships hovered for a moment longer, then one moved closer, hovering near the edge of the clearing. Alex held his breath. He could feel the Queen's presence, her attention sharp and watchful. The ship's movement was deliberate but cautious. It released a small probe that floated down to the ground. Alex observed, heart pounding. The probe projected light patterns, unfamiliar but not threatening. He mirrored the patterns using the temple's devices. Slowly, step by step, a basic dialogue began. The Queen's tail flicked in response to the changes in the probe's behavior. It was subtle, but Alex felt the encouragement. He realized that the Queen was guiding him, not with words, but with her presence and attention. Her trust, though not complete, was growing. Over the next several days, Alex refined the communication, learning to use both human logic and his understanding of the Queen's behavior. He discovered that humans had a unique advantage: creativity and improvisation. Where the alien scouts relied on patterns and tradition, he could think outside the norms. He began to craft solutions that impressed not only the Queen but also the scouts, demonstrating a level of ingenuity that was unfamiliar to them. One afternoon, a more serious test arrived. A rival faction of the Queen's species appeared near the temple. Their ships were larger, more imposing, and they radiated authority and suspicion. Alex realized that his actions now could have consequences far beyond his immediate situation. A misstep could provoke conflict or worse. He quickly analyzed the situation. Retreat was not an option. Aggression would be catastrophic. Instead, he relied on careful observation and improvisation. Using the devices in the temple, he created a controlled display of energy that mirrored the Queen's tail movements, a subtle but clear signal of non-hostility and alignment with her authority. The rival faction hovered, scanning, cautious but intrigued. Alex felt the weight of the Queen's attention, sharp and commanding. He held his position, matching her rhythm, adjusting his actions to her subtle guidance. Slowly, the rival ships began to withdraw, their curiosity satisfied, their suspicion diminished. Alex exhaled, exhausted but triumphant. The Queen's tail flicked gently, a clear sign of approval. In that moment, he realized that humans could hold their own, even in situations where sheer power was overwhelming. Ingenuity, observation, and courage mattered as much as strength, and perhaps even more. As days turned into weeks, Alex's confidence grew. He began to take small steps outside the temple, guided by the Queen. She remained close, her presence a constant reminder of the stakes, but also a source of protection. His team accompanied him cautiously, and together they explored the surrounding areas, documenting the alien flora and fauna as well as the energy patterns that govern the land. Alex discovered that many of the challenges they faced were not purely physical. The alien environment was filled with subtle hazards, energy fields that could trap the unwary, plants that reacted to movement, and natural structures that shifted unexpectedly. Yet, with careful observation and thoughtful action, he navigated these dangers successfully. Humanity's adaptability proved invaluable. One evening, as the sun set and the alien sky filled with colors he could not name, Alex sat quietly near the Queen. She coiled gracefully, her tail pulsing softly in acknowledgement of his calm and steady presence. He realized that their relationship had evolved. She was no longer merely observing, she was collaborating. Their interactions had become a dance of trust and understanding, a partnership built on mutual respect. Yet the challenges were far from over. A sudden tremor shook the temple, sending dust and debris falling from the walls. Alex sprang into action, using his knowledge of human engineering and alien technology to stabilize a critical device before it could fail. The Queen responded instantly, her tail shielding him from falling debris, a clear signal that she recognized his competence and effort. The incident was a turning point. Alex realized that the Queen's attention, while demanding, was also a recognition of human value. He was no longer simply surviving under her gaze. He was contributing, proving that humans were capable, resourceful, and resilient. Encouraged, Alex began to take on more ambitious tasks. He explored deeper into the temple, mapping chambers that had never been seen by human eyes. He documented the alien mechanisms, deciphered some of the energy flows, and even began to propose adjustments that could improve the functionality of certain devices. Each success reinforced the Queen's trust, and slowly, he sensed a shift in the alien society's perception of him. Scouts who had once been suspicious began to approach with curiosity rather than caution. Some even seemed impressed by his actions, though Alex could not be certain of their thoughts. It was enough that the Queen's attention remained favorable. With her as his guide, he felt a growing confidence that humanity could establish a foothold in this alien world, not through conquest, but through ingenuity, respect, and collaboration. The Queen's behavior continued to teach him valuable lessons. She was patient, observant, and strategic. Alex realized that humans could learn much from her methods. Planning, careful observation, and adaptability were crucial, not just for survival, but for thriving in a world far different from their own. And yet he also knew that human creativity and intuition were strengths the aliens could not replicate. Where they relied on tradition, humans could improvise, experiment, and adapt quickly. One night, as he rested near the shielded tail, Alex reflected on the journey so far. He thought of Earth, of his colleagues, of the countless generations who had faced the unknown and persevered. He realized that humans were small, fragile, and yet remarkable. Their ingenuity, courage, and resilience allowed them to confront challenges far beyond what their size or strength might suggest. The Queen's tail flicked gently, a subtle but unmistakable signal of acknowledgement. Alex understood that she recognized not only his efforts, but the potential of humanity itself. Through him, she was learning that humans could rise to challenges with intelligence, creativity, and courage. As the alien night settled over the temple, Alex felt a sense of purpose he had never experienced before. The days ahead would be demanding, filled with trials that tested every skill he possessed. Yet he was ready. Humanity had faced the unknown before, and they would do so again. With the Queen's guidance, and with his own ingenuity, he was determined to navigate the complexities of this alien world and demonstrate the remarkable potential of his species. And so, under the unwavering gaze of the alien Queen, Dr. Alex Mercer prepared for the challenges yet to come. Each day was a test, each action a lesson, and each success a small victory for humanity. The galaxy beyond the temple awaited, full of danger, discovery, and opportunity. And Alex was determined to meet it head-on, proving that humans were not merely survivors. They were creators, innovators, and explorers capable of remarkable feats. The days had grown longer and more challenging for Dr. Alex Mercer. Life under the constant gaze of the alien Queen was no longer just about survival. It had become a test of endurance, intelligence, and courage. Every action mattered, every gesture was watched, and every decision had consequences not just for him, but potentially for all of humanity. Alex had learned to anticipate the Queen's attention. Her tail movements, the pulsing light of the shield, and even subtle shifts in the energy around her became a language he could understand. He had adapted to her scrutiny, finding ways to act that were both cautious and confident. And yet, despite his progress, he knew that the outside world posed an even greater challenge. Scouts from the alien society continued to hover near the temple, observing with careful attention. Some were curious, some suspicious, and some openly hostile. Alex understood that he could not rely solely on his interactions with the Queen to ensure safety. He needed a strategy, one that combined human ingenuity with the lessons he had learned from her presence. One morning, he discovered signs of an approaching threat. A fleet of ships, larger and more imposing than the scouts he had encountered before, appeared on the horizon. The energy readings from the temple devices suggested that this faction was not friendly. They were organized, disciplined, and clearly prepared for confrontation. Alex realized that a direct encounter could be catastrophic. He turned to the Queen, seeking guidance in her subtle signals. Her tail flicked once sharply, and the shield pulsed in a steady rhythm. Alex interpreted it as a warning, but also as an invitation. She was giving him the opportunity to act, to use his ingenuity to navigate the situation. Alex quickly devised a plan. He would use the temple's energy systems in combination with the queen's tail movements to create a controlled display that would demonstrate alignment with her authority while deterring aggression from the rival faction. It was risky, but it was the only option. He moved carefully, positioning devices, calibrating sensors, and synchronizing his movements with the queen's tail. The rival ships drew closer, their energy signatures growing stronger. Alex felt the weight of the queen's attention, sharp and commanding, guiding him through every step. With precise timing, he activated the devices. Energy arcs leapt through the temple, forming patterns that mirrored the queen's tail movements. Pulses of light and sound radiated outward, a complex signal that communicated non-hostility and respect for her authority. Alex held his position, watching closely. For a tense moment, nothing happened. Then the rival ships slowed, their sensors analyzing the display. Alex adjusted the timing, fine-tuning the signals to match the queen's subtle shifts. Slowly, the energy patterns resonated with the surrounding area, creating a display of controlled power that was both impressive and dissuasive. The fleet hesitated, then one by one, the ships began to withdraw. Alex exhaled, a wave of relief washing over him. The queen's tail flicked gently, a sign of approval. He had succeeded, not through strength or aggression, but through intelligence, observation, and creativity. Humanity had demonstrated its value in a way the alien factions could not ignore. The event marked a turning point. Alex's interactions with the Queen and her society were no longer purely experimental. He had proven that humans could adapt, think critically, and respond effectively under pressure. His ingenuity had earned respect, and the Queen's trust in him had deepened. Despite the success, the challenges continued. The alien environment was unpredictable, filled with hidden hazards and mysterious energy flows. Alex navigated forests of towering plants that reacted to movement, rivers of liquid that conducted strange currents, and cavernous areas where gravity fluctuated unpredictably. Each new challenge required observation, analysis, and creative solutions. Humans' ability to improvise became their greatest asset. One day, while exploring a previously uncharted section of the temple, Alex discovered a series of intricate mechanisms connected to the shield surrounding the queen's tail. He realized that these devices were not merely protective. They were part of a complex system that managed energy flows throughout the temple. Understanding them could provide insight into the queen's abilities and perhaps offer new ways to communicate with her species. Alex approached cautiously, aware of the queen's constant attention. Her tail moved slightly, a signal of caution. He adjusted his approach, carefully observing her responses. Step by step, he analyzed the mechanisms, taking meticulous notes and making minor adjustments to test their function. Each successful interaction was acknowledged with a pulse of light from the shield. As he worked, he began to notice patterns that suggested a form of logic underlying the mechanisms. The Queen's society had built systems that were precise, elegant, and deeply integrated with their environment. Alex realized that human ingenuity and the Queen's structured intelligence could complement each other. Where their methods differed, there was room for collaboration. Late one afternoon, while examining a particularly complex device, Alex heard a low hum from outside the temple. He rushed to a viewing point and saw a new fleet approaching, larger and more organized than any before. This was no longer a scouting mission. This was an attempt to assert control over the region. Alex knew that he could not confront them directly. He needed to use strategy, observation, and the lessons he had learned from the Queen. He quickly devised a plan to use the temple's energy network in conjunction with the Queen's tail movements to create a controlled escape path. It required precise timing, careful calculation, and complete coordination with the Queen. He approached her, communicating through gestures and the energy patterns he had mastered over the past weeks. The Queen's tail flicked once, sharply, signaling her understanding and cooperation. Together, they activated the temple's systems. Energy pulses created barriers, light patterns distracted the incoming fleet, and carefully timed shifts in the Queen's tail opened a path through the forested terrain. Alex led the way, moving with precision, adjusting devices, and responding to the Queen's subtle guidance. The alien fleet hesitated, their sensors struggling to interpret the display. By the time they reached a safe clearing, the fleet had begun to withdraw, unable to predict or counter the coordinated display. Alex exhaled, exhausted but triumphant. The Queen's tail flicked gently in acknowledgement, and the shield pulsed softly. He had succeeded not by force, but through intelligence, adaptability, and collaboration with one of the galaxy's most powerful beings. The experience reinforced a profound lesson. Humanity's strength lay not in brute force, but in creativity, observation, and courage. Alex had faced threats far greater than himself, and he had navigated them successfully. The Queen's attention, once a burden, had become a guide, a partner, and a source of insight. As they rested that evening, Alex reflected on the journey so far. He had earned a measure of trust from the Queen, demonstrated the value of human ingenuity to her society, and survived challenges that would have overwhelmed others. Yet he knew that the path ahead remained uncertain. The galaxy beyond the temple was full of unknown dangers, and the Queen's attention, while protective, was constant and demanding. He also realized that his relationship with the Queen had evolved. What had begun as a cautious coexistence was now a partnership. She was not merely observing him, she was collaborating, testing, and guiding. And in her way, she had begun to respect the qualities that defined humanity: ingenuity, courage, adaptability, and perseverance. The following days were filled with further exploration and experimentation. Alex continued to study the temple's mechanisms, document the surrounding environment, and refine his interactions with the Queen. Each success reinforced the growing bond between them. He learned to anticipate her reactions, to interpret subtle cues, and to act with both caution and confidence. One day, while exploring a newly discovered chamber, Alex uncovered evidence of ancient interactions between the Queen's species and other civilizations. Artifacts and inscriptions suggested that the Queen's society had long valued intelligence, adaptability, and creativity, qualities that humans embodied naturally. Alex realized that his actions were not only shaping the Queen's perception of humanity, but also resonating with the principles that had guided her civilization for millennia. The discovery filled him with a sense of purpose. Humanity had been underestimated in this part of the galaxy, but Alex had begun to change that perception. Through ingenuity, respect, and courage, humans could establish themselves as valued participants in the larger galactic community. And the Queen, with her constant attention and guidance, had become both a teacher and an ally in this endeavor. As the alien sun set, casting long shadows across the temple, Alex sat quietly near the shielded tail. He reflected on the challenges, the successes, and the lessons learned. Humanity had faced the unknown before, and now, in the presence of a being far greater than themselves, they were proving their value once again. The Queen's tail flicked softly, a gentle pulse of light acknowledging his thoughts and efforts. Alex smiled faintly. He could not speak her language, but he did not need to. In her own way, she understood. She recognized his determination, his ingenuity, and the potential of humanity. And as the stars began to appear in the alien sky, Alex felt a renewed sense of purpose. The path ahead would be difficult, filled with trials, discoveries, and challenges beyond imagination. Yet he was ready. Humanity had survived, adapted, and thrived in the face of the unknown for millennia. And now, under the gaze of the alien Queen, Alex Mercer was determined to ensure that humanity's legacy continued to shine, even in the farthest reaches of the galaxy. He rose, adjusting the scanners and sensors, preparing for whatever challenges the coming days might bring. The Queen remained close, her presence constant but guiding, a reminder that he was not alone. Together, they would navigate the complexities of this alien world, demonstrating the remarkable qualities that defined humanity: intelligence, courage, creativity, and resilience. And with that resolve, Alex stepped forward, ready to face the future, confident that humanity's ingenuity would shine even in the shadow of the galaxy's most powerful beings. Dr. Alex Mercer had come a long way since the first accidental shielding of the alien Queen's tail. Days of observation, cautious interaction, and trial and error had transformed his situation from one of fear and uncertainty into a unique partnership. The Queen's attention, once oppressive, had become a guide, a silent teacher who showed him the intricacies of her species, their technology, and their society. The alien world beyond the temple was alive with motion. Scout ships hovered in the distance, some wary, others intrigued. The Queen's presence had brought Alex a level of protection he could never have achieved alone. Yet he knew that relying solely on her was not enough. Humanity's place in this alien world depended on him demonstrating resourcefulness, intelligence, and courage, the qualities that defined his species. He had been preparing for this moment for days. Intelligence gathered from the Queen's guidance, observations of the rival factions, and careful mapping of the temple's energy networks all pointed to a critical decision. The Queen's society was at a crossroads, with factions vying for dominance. Alex realized that the same ingenuity that had allowed him to survive thus far could also influence the outcome. He would have to act carefully, strategically, and decisively. Alex began by consolidating the data he had gathered. The temple's energy network could be used to influence not only the immediate surroundings, but also the behavior of alien ships at a distance. He devised a series of displays that could demonstrate cooperation, control, and respect for the Queen's authority while subtly discouraging aggression from the rival factions. It was delicate work, requiring precise timing and coordination. The Queen's tail flicked softly as he approached, and the shield pulsed in acknowledgement. She had become a partner in this effort, responding to his actions and guiding him with subtle shifts. Alex realized that this was no longer just about survival. It was about proving humanity's worth. The galaxy was watching, and he had the chance to demonstrate the unique strengths of his species: ingenuity, adaptability, and courage under pressure. The first challenge came from a fleet approaching from the south. Larger than the scouts, their energy signatures indicated both authority and suspicion. Alex quickly activated the temple's energy systems, synchronizing pulses with the Queen's tail. The display was both controlled and powerful, demonstrating alignment with her authority while subtly signaling to the approaching fleet that aggression would be unwise. For a tense moment, nothing happened. Alex held his breath, watching the display and the Queen's reactions. Then the rival fleet slowed. Their ships hovered, analyzing the patterns. Alex adjusted the timing, fine-tuning the signals in harmony with the Queen's movements. Slowly, the fleet began to retreat, unable to interpret the display as a threat, but clearly recognizing the authority of the Queen and the intelligence behind the human actions. The success brought a wave of relief. Alex allowed himself a brief moment to breathe. Humanity had survived not through brute force but through ingenuity and careful observation. The Queen's tail flicked gently, a clear signal of approval. For the first time, Alex felt that their partnership had truly solidified, but there was no time to relax. Rival factions remained active, and the larger society was still cautious of his presence. Alex knew that he needed to establish more lasting trust. He decided to use the temple's mechanisms to create a permanent demonstration of human collaboration and ingenuity. By integrating alien technology with his understanding of human problem-solving, he began designing a network of energy patterns that could stabilize areas prone to conflict and improve the efficiency of the Queen's societal systems. As he worked, the Queen remained close. Her attention was constant, yet guiding rather than controlling. Alex realized that she had come to respect his intellect, his creativity, and his courage. In a way, the partnership mirrored humanity itself, small in scale but capable of remarkable feats when combined with careful thought and determination. Outside the temple, alien observers noted the changes. Systems once chaotic were now more orderly, coordinated, and efficient. Energy flows stabilized, and rival factions hesitated before acting rashly. Alex's actions, in harmony with the Queen, had created a demonstration of competence that could not be ignored. Slowly, perceptions began to shift. Humans were no longer outsiders. They were participants, capable of contributing to the balance and stability of the alien society. Despite the progress, challenges remained. Natural hazards in the surrounding terrain required constant vigilance. Energy fields could trap the unwary, and unpredictable shifts in environmental patterns tested both his understanding and adaptability. Alex relied on every skill he had developed during his time under the Queen's attention. Observation, patience, and creative problem-solving became his greatest assets. One day, a particularly dangerous situation arose. A group of rival scouts attempted to infiltrate the temple's energy network, testing its defenses. Alex recognized the threat immediately. Using a combination of human improvisation and the Queen's subtle guidance, he devised a series of energy redirects and shields that neutralized the threat without causing harm. The intruders retreated, baffled and impressed by the display. The Queen's tail flicked once more, pulsing softly in acknowledgement. Alex felt a surge of pride. Humanity's ingenuity had once again prevailed. He had faced challenges that would have overwhelmed others, and through careful observation, creativity, and courage, he had not only survived but influenced the outcome in ways that respected the alien society and its powerful leader. As the alien sun set over the horizon, casting long shadows through the temple, Alex reflected on his journey. What had begun as a mistake, the accidental shielding of the Queen's tail, had transformed into a partnership that demonstrated the best qualities of humanity. He had earned trust, proved ingenuity, and shown courage in the face of overwhelming odds. The galaxy was vast, and the Queen's society was only one of countless civilizations, yet Alex knew that his actions had made a difference. In the quiet of the temple, he approached the Queen. Her tail flicked softly in response to his presence, and the shield pulsed in acknowledgement. Alex reached out cautiously, touching the base of the tail with respect and gratitude. It was a gesture that transcended words, a demonstration of trust and understanding between species. The Queen responded with a gentle, deliberate flick, a silent affirmation of their bond. Alex realized that humanity's strength lay not only in survival, but in the ability to learn, adapt, and collaborate. The Queen had tested him, observed him, and challenged him. Through her attention, he had discovered the unique power of human ingenuity, the courage to face the unknown, and the persistence to overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles. The following days were a celebration of progress. Alex continued to refine the energy networks, exploring new areas of the temple and its surroundings. Alien observers watched, some curious, some cautious, and some openly respectful. His actions demonstrated that humans could work in harmony with alien societies, contributing intelligence and creativity rather than relying on force or dominance. As he moved through the temple, Alex thought about Earth, his colleagues, and the countless generations who had faced the unknown and persevered. Humanity had always been underestimated, yet time and again they had demonstrated resourcefulness, courage, and ingenuity. Here, on a distant alien world, under the gaze of one of the galaxy's most powerful beings, Alex had proven once more that humans were capable of remarkable achievements. The Queen's presence remained constant, but it was no longer a burden. It was a guide, a partnership, and a source of insight. Together, they had faced threats, navigated challenges, and influenced the perception of humanity in ways that would echo throughout her society. Alex understood that this was only the beginning of a larger story, one in which humans could play a meaningful and respected role. In the final moments of daylight, Alex stood beside the shielded tail, looking out over the alien landscape. The forests, rivers, and energy patterns stretched before him, alive with motion and possibility. He felt a profound sense of purpose and determination. Humanity's journey had brought him here, and through ingenuity, courage, and respect, he had made a lasting impact. The Queen's tail flicked softly, pulsing with light that shimmered across the temple walls. Alex smiled. He could not speak her language, but he did not need to. The bond they had formed, built on trust, understanding, and collaboration, transcended words. It was a partnership that honored the strengths of both species. As night fell, Alex prepared for the challenges and discoveries that lay ahead. The galaxy was vast, filled with unknown dangers and incredible opportunities. Yet he was ready. Humanity had survived and thrived through ingenuity, perseverance, and courage, and under the guidance of the alien Queen, Alex Mercer would continue to demonstrate that humans were capable of extraordinary feats. He glanced at the Queen one last time before settling down for the night. Her presence was unwavering, yet comforting, a reminder that he was not alone in this vast and mysterious world. Through mutual respect and collaboration, they had achieved something remarkable. Humanity's ingenuity had earned a place in the eyes of a civilization far greater than itself. And as the stars filled the alien sky, Alex Mercer understood a truth he had known all along. Humans were small, yes, but their courage, intelligence, and creativity made them extraordinary. They could rise to challenges that seemed impossible, adapt to situations beyond comprehension, and leave a mark on the galaxy that would not soon be forgotten. With that thought, Alex closed his eyes, ready to rest, knowing that humanity's journey, under the gaze of the alien Queen and beyond, was only beginning.